introduce our second, untapped economic opportunities for victims of domestic violence. Joining us in this panel, we have Michelle Luckowitz, who is the Director of Legal Programs for Partners, a nonprofit organization that advocates in the court and through policy for victims of domestic and sexual violence along with their children. Michelle has been a practicing attorney for over 20 years. Zamad Eid is a community justice attorney with American Friends Services Committee Immigrant Rights Program in Red Bank. He has been practicing immigration with AFSC since 2019, where he has helped families secure various types of humanitarian immigration relief. He develops training curriculums and conducts training programs for organizations on the fundamentals of family and humanitarian-based immigration. Franchelli Inoa is a passionate and dedicated professional with 6 years of experience assisting survivors of domestic violence. Through her different positions at the YWCA of Union County, she has become very familiar with the different forms of domestic violence and how they present themselves. In her time as a STEP coordinator, she has offered a variety of services for survivors, forcing on promoting independence through self-empowerment and financial literacy. Welcome all.
Thank you for having us. I'm standing in for Michelle today, and my name is Victoria Nicholson. I'm the Director of Pro Bono Programs at Partners.
Hi, everyone. My name is Franchelli Inoa, and I am the STEP Coordinator here at the YWCA Union County. I'm excited to be here with everyone.
Hello, everyone. I'm Zamad Eid. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Do either one of you guys have a PowerPoint or presentation you would like to pull up?
I actually do, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, so STEP here at the YWCA Union County stands for Skills, Training, and Empowerment Program. So it's a program designed to help survivors of domestic violence explore and learn the factors that will contribute to their financial independence and help them overcome financial abuse. So some resources we use for supporting financial recovery. One thing that we focus on is credit repair. And one of the main resources that we use is the Independence Project through the National Network to End Domestic Violence. So the Independence Project is a microloan program, and it is designed to help survivors improve credit. It offers them a small loan of $100 with 0 interest. And the benefit of this program is that they're able to continuously apply even after they've completed the microloan, paid it back. They can continue to participate in the program and continue to apply until their credit score goes up to a number that they're comfortable with. So this is a really great resource that we like to use. We also use annualcreditreport.com. We found it very helpful to make survivors aware that they are able to get a free annual credit report, specifically a free one from each bureau once a year. This helps them assess their financial situation and make them aware of any fraud that's been done in their name, if anyone else has open credit cards in their name. When it comes to domestic violence, this is something that can be common among spouses, and it is a very real form of financial abuse. So being aware of their credit report and any activity on their credit report is helpful. We also use Money Management International. It helps with debt management. They offer free consultation over the phone 24/7, which I think is really beneficial for survivors that can access this help at any time of the day. We all know that it's not always safe for survivors to be accessing help certain times of the day. So I think this is really beneficial. They do offer income-based help. So depending on their income, they might be charged for the service. But the good thing is that the consultation is free. So they'll be able to speak to a financial advisor who will ask them questions about their debt, their different forms of credit card debt, and be able to offer them some form of evaluation. Another help that they offer is also tips on resources for budgeting to help survivors with resources in the community, maybe it be for food or things like that, that can help them limit their expenses. Something else that we help survivors is understanding banking and different forms of banking that could be beneficial to them. So Mochify is a resource that's very beneficial for survivors. It's an online banking platform that offers multilingual service, customer service. So this helps a variety of survivors. They also teach budgeting skills. They have different resources on their app that can help survivors better understand finances. They even offer a mobile banking card, and you don't need a social security or an ITIN number to apply, which I find this to be very beneficial for immigrant survivors. They also accept legal ID and passports from other countries, so I find this very beneficial. We've also made connections with staff at the Cranford office for New York Community Bank. We work very closely with someone. Her name is Robin DeMore. We've also been able to work closely with her staff, and she has offered us assistance with survivors who have specific banking questions. She's participated in some of our workshops, and she's also offered survivors to come into her office if they would like any more further assistance in their personal situations. I find that this is also beneficial. Sometimes the unique situation that the survivor is in, they might need a little bit more of a one-on-one, and this resource, I think, has been very beneficial for survivors. We also host yearly workshops where we have various volunteers come and offer assistance with budgeting, savings, credit, and debt management. So we've had specific volunteers that I actually would like to mention right now. Some of them previously worked for PPAC Gladstone Bank, Serene Longsworth, Carolina Rozecki, Betty Thomas, Pat Tequila, and Catherine Hawley. These are financial planners and financial advisors that have been working with us in recent years, multiple times a year on our financial workshops, offering very good insight and information to our survivors. And again, offering that one-on-one help outside of workshops. I think that resource and that assistance of offering their contact information and giving your survivors the option of reaching out to them on their personal time for that assistance, I think has been very helpful in supporting our survivors in financial recovery. We also offer different resources for opportunity for career development. We like to make our survivors aware of the different opportunities in the communities, like the American Job Center, that offer connections to job opportunities and job trainings, as well as the Union County One Stop Career Center. We also work closely with the Displaced Homemaker program at what was formerly known as Union County College, now Union College. They connect survivors with educational opportunities in both English and Spanish. So again, this is very helpful for the population of survivors that we help. These classes that they offer in different areas, different capacities. In the past, I know they have offered childcare classes, office administration classes, classes like that, but they do change on a regular basis depending on the catalog they're offering that year. So we do work closely with them in keeping these survivors up to date on the classes that they're offering. So this is a great opportunity for survivors that are looking to reintegrate into the workforce, because if they do qualify for this program, they're able to take these classes for free, which is a big help for our survivors. We also support those looking to go into entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship provides an alternative approach to a job. It is very popular among our immigrant population. One resource that we really use is Rising Tide Business Academy, or Rising Tide Capital. It is a 12-week business course for entrepreneurs. They offer courses in both English and Spanish, and they do charge for registration on an income-based level. But with the survivors that I've worked with, I can say that they have been charged within $50 to $150. Some of them have been able to register for free, and after that, there's no additional charge for the course. So this gives our survivors a chance to explore entrepreneurship, and especially for our immigrant population, this is very beneficial for them as well. STEP is also offering computer labs for survivors, where we have computers that are to give our survivors access to the laptops for the ability to work on resumes, apply for jobs, etc. Limit to technological resources can be very limiting right now when everything is online. It's not the same like before when you can walk into a business, ask for an application and apply. So survivors having limited access to technology can really be hindering in their journey to become financially independent. So these computer labs alternate between Elizabeth and Kenilworth, and we find it very beneficial for survivors that are looking to reintegrate into the workforce. So thank you so much for your time.
It was fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, it was really good information. Victoria, do you want to go next, or do you?
Sure, whatever you'd like.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So I'm Victoria Nicholson from Partners. We're a nonprofit organization located in Bloomfield, New Jersey, and we provide legal services to.
Like the other side. See, I'm gonna. Yeah, it was good.
Julie, do you mind if you please mute yourself? Thank you.
Thank you. So we provide legal services to limited income individuals in Essex, Hudson, Union, Middlesex, and Passaic counties. And we provide representation in domestic violence restraining order hearings, applications for child custody by survivors of domestic violence or sexual violence, and in applications for protection under the Sexual Assault Survivors Protection Act. And I'm here today to talk about what financial resources are available through the courts to victims. So the Prevention of Domestic Violence Act does allow for victims to apply to the court for financial relief. And they can do that during the course of their restraining order hearing if they are seeking a restraining order. At the conclusion of a restraining order hearing, if a restraining order is granted, the plaintiff or the victim can ask the court for certain forms of relief. And those forms of relief include child support and child custody, right? So if the parties have a child together or children together, they absolutely can ask the court to calculate child support. The court calculates child support by determining what the custodial parent's income is. And the custodial parent under the Prevention of Domestic Violence Act, there's a presumption that the person who's been adjudicated or found by the court to be a victim of domestic violence should be awarded primary physical custody of any children of the relationship. So it's usually going to be the victim. So the child support is calculated by determining what the victim's income is, what the defendant's income is, and the court, it is codified in law, but the court uses a software system to determine what the child support amount is going to be. And that can all be done in the same day as when a restraining order is granted. So victims are encouraged to absolutely ask for that immediately after receiving a restraining order from the court during the same proceeding. Also during the same proceeding, they can ask for spousal support. If the parties have been married, they may be entitled to spousal support. Certainly the longer the length of the marriage may increase the amount of spousal support that's available. Spousal support is a little bit more limited for people that are in shorter duration marriages, but it is something that's available, and anyone who is married may want to ask for spousal support in addition to child support. They can also ask for payment of medical bills. Many survivors of domestic violence incur medical bills because they're going to the emergency room or perhaps a primary care provider because of injuries that they have incurred. They can absolutely ask the court for compensation from the defendant for the payment of those medical bills. And if the court asks, sometimes the court will ask for documentation of medical bills, or sometimes the court will set a separate hearing on a different day to determine what relief is going to be granted in some cases. So if a victim is going to be presenting to the court, let's say, their medical bills or any other type of documentation. Maybe they're to calculate child support. Maybe they're submitting, their W-2 forms or tax forms, pay stubs. They should always think about, okay, do I need to redact or remove any information that's confidential so the defendant doesn't find out where they work or find out their medical record numbers or things like that? So just a safety planning when before the court and asking for this kind of relief, and the court does understand that. Other things that they can request if they're receive a restraining order is compensation for any damage to property that they incurred as a result of abuse. Many of my clients do see damage to property. Sometimes there are holes that are made in walls or damage to the physical property of a residence. Sometimes we see damage to vehicles, because vehicles means escape from abuse, right? So we see slashed tires, broken windshields, things like that. Very frequently, we see broken cell phones, because cell phones are how we call for help. Cell phones are how we retain a lot of evidence, right? So when you're seeing a case like that, we want to make sure that we're requesting compensation for those damages. And to prepare for that, a survivor can say, well, I know that my phone was broken. I know that my tires were slashed. If they're able to get a bill from a mechanic or agency who changed their tires, or if they're able to have a valuation of their phone or what the cost of a new smartphone or iPhone is going to cost, that's really helpful to court to bring that to court with them so they can ask for that type of relief. If the parties are in a shared residence, they can absolutely ask for assistance so they can remain in that residence. So they can both ask for possession of the residence. So possession of the residence means that the victim has a right to live at the residence. And this could be an apartment, or it could be, a home that's owned. Okay. And that doesn't mean that the defendant necessarily loses their financial obligation or property interest in that residence. It just means that the defendant can't live there anymore and only the victim can live there. So the victim should definitely ask for possession of the residence. They can also ask for assistance with rents being paid if they're renting a residence, and the defendant's on the lease. They can ask for help with that. They can also ask for help with payment of utility bills, electric, water, other bills that are related to the property in order to keep the property habitable for them. If they're in an owned home, they can ask for the defendant to continue paying all or a portion of any mortgages on the home that may be in existence. So those are all legal remedies that are available, and financial remedies that are available to victims. Sometimes there are, beyond the scope of the conversation I'm having with you today, sometimes there are unique financial issues that come up in domestic violence cases where there is a unique financial loss. Sometimes there's a situation where part of the violence was financial abuse, where a defendant may have drained a bank account or taken control of a bank account or otherwise absconded with money. Certainly, a victim can bring that before the court and ask the court to see if the court can make them whole and order the defendant to make them whole. And that we have been successful in cases like that at Partners, where we have, financial abuse and control, where shared bank accounts have been drained or money has been absconded with in that way. In a child custody case, if there's a survivor, sometimes we have survivors who are seeking child custody alone under what's called the non-dissolution docket, which means just the child custody docket, not the case type for domestic violence. In those case types as well, absolutely, child support can be requested, and the court uses the same system as in a domestic violence restraining order to determine what the amount of child support might be.
Oh, Victoria, I'm so sorry. Thank you so much. Are you done? Would you like to continue?
No, I think that I'm completed. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask.
Yeah, so we did get 2 questions on the chat. So I'll ask one and then I'll ask the other.
Okay.
For spousal support, do they need to have been married for any minimal number of years? And if so, what is the impact of how much support?
That's a really great question. And that's going to be really case by case. Unlike child support, the court doesn't have, a definitive rubric for determining the amount of spousal support. Right now, our spousal support laws and alimony laws usually look into the length of the marriage. Usually when we're looking at, significant ongoing support, we're looking at marriages of 10 years of duration or more. When people are married for a very short period of time, the court may find that support may be very minimal or may not be awarded. But it really is something that is based on a case-by-case basis, also based on the posture of the parties as well. Sometimes too, immigration status comes into play as well. And some forms of visas that are issued between parties where we have victims who are being brought to the United States through marriage. Sometimes the abuser actually has an obligation by sponsoring the victim's citizenship to continue to support her. So that can come into play as well.
Thank you so much. We had another question asking, this is, I believe, in court. What if the defendant isn't present? How would child support be calculated?
That's a really great question. So I want to encourage all of you out there, if you're supporting survivors, or if you are a survivor yourself, if the defendant's not present at the hearing, you should absolutely still request that spousal support or child support be calculated. If the defendant fails to appear and the defendant has been properly noticed of the hearing, that's actually defendant has chosen not to appear and chosen not to have a say in the proceedings, and you absolutely can ask the court to calculate child support. In that case, a victim can advise the court what they believe that the defendant's income might be. They may have some knowledge. They certainly will be truthful to the court. Maybe I didn't have control of the finances, but I know that he worked as, let's say, a financier. So, he may have a lot of income. If it's really uncertain, the court can impute income to the defendant. Impute means assume that the defendant should be making a certain amount of money. So we've had cases where defendant is voluntarily under or unemployed, where we've asked for income to be imputed. So I'll give you an example of that. So let's say someone who's maybe defendant's an attorney like myself, right? And defendant says, well, I'm just not going to work anymore, but defendant's fully capable of working and qualified for, a very perhaps high paying job, then the court should say you should get a job. You should go ahead and find a job. You're able to find one, and we're going to impute a certain amount of income, maybe the average amount that an attorney makes to you because you're failing to find work. Even if the defendant is not skilled but is underemployed, the court can absolutely impute minimum wage to the defendant to determine the amount of child support even in his absence. So if a victim has any type of access to any type of financial documentation, sometimes we have victims who they may have a pay stub that they found within a shared residence the defendant has been removed from, any type of documentation, tax returns, anything, they should definitely bring it to court to help the court determine even if the defendant is absent.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that.
Mm-hmm.
Another question came up. Are there any legal supports available for illegal immigrants as well?
Yep. And we like to call immigrants in that situation undocumented immigrants. So for undocumented immigrants, Partners absolutely helps individuals who are survivors regardless of their legal status. So that's not going to turn anyone away. I know that's true for legal services programs as well in New Jersey. So people should be encouraged to seek help if they are a survivor. If they are a survivor and they are an undocumented person, they absolutely have the same rights to everything that I just talked about. They have the right to child support, child custody, possession of a residence, just the same as anyone else. There are I'm not an immigration attorney, but there are special paths to citizenship for survivors of domestic violence, including what's called under the Violence Against Women Act, VAWA petitions, U visas for victims of crime, and sometimes T visas for victims of human trafficking. So if you're working with a survivor and they also have an immigration component to their case, you absolutely should connect them with an immigration services provider. I know that we frequently work with American Friends, which is located in Newark, New Jersey, and also Legal Services of New Jersey has a immigration representation project, which is excellent. And if you need to reach out to me for any reason or Partners, we're also happy to make an introduction to you and your client if that's a service that's needed.
Perfect. Thank you. Zaman, I feel like you wanted to jump into the conversation.
I think she answered it quite accurately. There's from what I understand, so full disclosure, I'm a Pennsylvania barred attorney, and my practice in New Jersey is limited to immigration. But from what I understand, the New Jersey will not be considering your status because, and in addition to, like she said, that U visa, you have to go to the court, you have to file that TRO, you have to file the police complaint, you have to actually aid in the prosecution of the crime, and then also have that hardship of being damaged by the crime to qualify for the U visa. So it's all kind of fits together in that way. It does work, but there was another question that jumped in. I don't know if Victoria, you want to answer that last one, and then I can get going.
Oh, okay, let me take a look.
If you want, I can read it. What if you are being financially abused and he is not paying any of the bills? I am not working due to medical issues.
Okay, okay. If you're being financially abused, what you want to do is determine whether or not the abuse that you're experiencing will qualify you to file for a restraining order in family court. You could definitely call an agency like mine, like Partners, or Legal Services of New Jersey, or your local legal services office to get help from an attorney like myself to determine whether or not the abuse you're experiencing will qualify under the Prevention of Domestic Violence Act. Sometimes people are being abused and the type of abuse they're experiencing doesn't quite meet the legal definition to qualify for a restraining order, but that doesn't negate the fact that you're experiencing abuse. If for some reason you're not able to obtain a restraining order based on the abuse that you're experiencing, you may want to think about safety planning. And this is where I know the YWCA, the folks at the YWCA are definitely going to help you with safety planning. You want to get in touch with the YWCA and think about, okay, what situation am I in? Do I need to leave the situation I'm in? And how can I do that safely? Do I need to ask the YWCA for assistance? Do I need to seek shelter, perhaps through the YWCA, and move out of my home and then try to extricate myself and extricate my finances from the abuser? Is that possible? If it's not possible, how do I try to make sure that I am whole? How will I make sure that I have financial resources? Is there ways that I can open my own bank accounts to stay safe? Is there ways where I can make sure that I'm choosing passwords to accounts that he's not going to be able to guess, or the abuser is not going to be able to, break into in any way? Okay, those are things to think about with financial abuse. And it also depends on your actual situation. So if you're married to your abuser, there may be options if you would like to initiate a divorce proceeding. And once again, do think through safety planning before initiating anything like this, because we don't want a situation where we're experiencing physical abuse because we've decided to take action. And that's where the YWCA is definitely going to come in to help you think about that and think through the steps. But you may want to think about filing for divorce, and in that divorce, having the finances separated so that you have your own finances and you're financially independent from the abuser.
Yes, if I can piggyback off of that,
Sure.
Thank you so much, Victoria, because you mentioned a very key component, which is safety planning. I think that one of my follow-up questions would be, what type of financial abuse are you experiencing? Because like Victoria mentioned, there are certain reliefs, certain options for the person. Is their spouse, or are they opening up credit cards in their name? There's a way that they can pause their credit so that no credit cards can be issued in the survivor's name. So yes, that's a great point, Victoria. I think safety planning and understanding different resources that can help you in that moment would be very beneficial. And maybe before that step of taking any legal action, you might want a safety plan and kind of understand better your situation. And I like that you use the word step, because my program is called Steps, so I can definitely help you in those steps for safety planning.
I'll mute myself here and. Okay, so I actually work with the Red Bank office of the Immigrant Rights Program with the American Friends Service Committee. I started in the Newark office and have worked my way down to the Red Bank office. So we provide all types of representation for immigration-related, humanitarian-based relief, and a lot of it's whether it be U visas, asylum, removal defense, or and we've seen a lot of the spectrum. We even go as far as to do some family-based immigration for those who qualify financially. But before we talk about economics, the big elephant in the room is always going to be taxes. Now, taxes, why are we talking about taxes? The reason we're talking about taxes is because even though you may or may not have status, if you're earning income and you reach a threshold for that dollar amount that the IRS says you should file, you should file. It doesn't matter if you're have visa or a work authorization or status. They're gonna look at whether or not you filed, and if you haven't filed, it's not the end of the world. You can do back taxes, you can go back and refile for years that you should have filed, and if you qualify financially, I'm going to plug the Rutgers Tax Clinic because they're a great partner of ours and they've helped us a lot of times getting those back taxes filed for folks, and being creative, and a lot of folks get paid cash or they get paid under the table, so it's hard to quantify. And a lot of times you say, if you are going to start getting paid cash on payday, take a photo of that cash outside of the business as proof of what you're getting paid, and kind of to help document it. And that'll also help you protect you in terms of fighting for benefits, proving that you're working there as far as, looking for employment benefits or sick days and things like that. But going back to taxes, there is a how do you file, and if you don't have a social security number, you essentially have to file for an ITIN. In order to get your ITIN, you basically have to have a copy of your passport, your original passport, and present that to a certified accountant qualified in issuing an ITIN. Essentially, other than that, the only way is to mail your original passport to the IRS, and I always recommend against that. Just find a certified accountant that's qualified, and they'll be able to do that for you. So before we get into the ITIN, how do you know if you need to file? And it all comes down to this calculation of gross income. Gross income is essentially all money from all sources derived, and is saying that no matter where you got the money, almost pretty much it counts towards gross income. And if you look at the IRS code, it kind of starts from that, and then everything else from there on out is just ways to deduct against your gross income to minimize your tax liability. Now, going back to the social security card, if you don't have one, well, there's always a confusion between I have a social security number. A lot of folks with EADs, they do have a social security number, but it says right on there, valid for only with work authorization. So there's levels to it in a way, but essentially that will be your social security number. And then when eventually you do get residency or citizenship, that'll be your social security number. But if you have an ITIN or have applied for an ITIN and you now have a social security number, you need to rescind that ITIN. You can no longer have both. You can't have both. So you have to actually send a letter to the IRS saying, hey, I no longer need this ITIN. I have a social now, please rescind it. Not an issue, but something you should do. Why do you need an ITIN? Why do you need a social security number? Yeah, you need to file for taxes if you make over the threshold amount, but also there's all these other issues that come into play. And I just found out today that you can get a bank account without an ITIN, but most banks, some of the Main Street banks like Chase and all those bigger banks, they require that you have an ITIN in order to secure a bank account. Now, part of the problem was that those bank accounts with ITINs typically have higher fees, they have higher minimums, and it adds to the overall higher cost of living that folks who are non-citizens have to endure, including the high cost of legal representation. Because in the United States, across the country, there are over 2 million pending immigration cases in our immigration courts. And that's just the removal cases. That's not the people who are filing for family or employment or under humanitarian like VAWA or U visa. And those are just the cases that they actually know of, because ICE every single day is issuing notices to appear to folks who aren't getting docketed in the immigration court. So there's an unknown number of pending cases that are about to come down once they actually get filed. What does that create? It creates crazy demand for immigration attorneys. They have no capacity, rates start going up, and it becomes unfeasible for folks to do simple things like renewing work authorizations or filing for asylum when they only have 1 year to do so. Now, again, the cost of healthcare is exorbitant because, according to certain regulations that we'll get into later, non-citizens have been banned from being eligible for Medicare and from being eligible from a lot of health programs if they arrived post 1996. And in addition, even if you've been paying into a system, for example, like the Social Security Administration, you've been working, you've been paying your 40 quarters, and you think you're eligible for Social Security income, you're not. you're subjected to a 5-year ban, and you would have to then wait 5 years before you can even start to collect. Now, that's all exacerbated by massive administrative delays within USCIS. So even once you're eligible for something, let's say you had the horrible experience of being a survivor, and then now there's a great opportunity for you to be eligible for potentially a U visa. We talked about that earlier. Now the U visa, it started out being rather normal. There's every year, there's only a limited number of U visas that Congress has dictated that the Services Center is allowed to issue, and that is a hilariously low number. That number is so hilariously low that currently the processing delays for a U visa are about 6 years, and that's just for the application. Once you actually receive the U visa, then you have 5 years of status. Those on the 4th year of status, you can finally apply for residency, but before recently, you weren't eligible for a work authorization until you actually got the U visa status. Recently, they issued a new process where they're gonna try to do bona fide determinations for applications that are pending to determine, okay, everything's pretty much here, let's give them a work authorization. Our office has only seen folks receive those types of work authorizations going back to applications that were filed in 2018. They haven't even caught up to the current applications yet, let alone the folks who are just filing now. So why does all of this kind of, create all this debt and potential expense, and in the United States, we're all about one paycheck lost away from being on the streets, and for the most of us at least. And so really this is a thing that can happen to anyone, but there are protections in the form of bankruptcy. The US bankruptcy courts are available to every individual in the United States, regardless of immigration status. One caveat: you need an ITIN. You need an ITIN or a social security number to be able to file. And why is bankruptcy important? Bankruptcy is important because, let's say you own your home and you're getting foreclosed on, file bankruptcy, they stop the foreclosure. They can no longer keep calling you. There's a lot of consumer protection laws that help prevent you from aggressive creditors and overly aggressive debt collectors, and all of those things that have been codified into consumer protection laws. You can then use that bankruptcy to help protect you from all of those things. And within bankruptcy, they'll create a plan. They'll try to figure out how much you should pay to who, but at least it's basically a net to help protect individuals in the United States from too serious of financial situations. Now, going back to the entrepreneurship, I saw there was a little bit of a discussion about this earlier, and this is something I always recommend to folks, regardless. So again, I'm a Pennsylvania bar attorney. I'm not a New Jersey attorney. If you need, I can't advise as to like the form of corporation you should start, or if it's an LLC or whatever, that I can't say. But what I can say from an immigration perspective is that folks with work authorization are generally allowed to work for themselves as long as the basis for their work authorization wasn't from an employer. So if you, for example, are here on a work visa and you're full-time with your employer, you're probably going to you can still have a side hustle, but you're going to want to make sure it doesn't conflict with your full-time position and that they don't let you go because of it, because then that would jeopardize your visa status entirely. But for everyone else that has a work authorization under asylees, TPS, DACA, deferred action, cancellation, all of those other categories, you can work for yourself. So you can take part of the American dream. You can be a creator, a producer, a service provider. You can be an inventor. You can build up your community, create a nonprofit, create a social services organization. You can do any of that. And why that's important is not only to be able to support yourself in ways that others may not believe in you. I always tell people, you're the biggest believer in yourself, and you have to be, because the reality is, if not, then who will be? But it always goes back to taxes. And I'm not a tax lawyer, but I did take tax in law school. And when you look at the actual tax code, there's a section on individuals filing for taxes, and then there's the section for corporations filing for taxes. And basically it says that once you have a business, now you can take advantage of all of those deductions that were otherwise not available to you. What does that do? It minimizes your tax liability. And if you're working, for example, a W-2 job, when you're paying into the system, by the end of the tax year, once you're filing your taxes and you're putting all your deductions together, you might even get a nice refund, because it all deducts against that gross income. And, when you're W-2, they take that money preliminarily, but essentially, you can claw back and minimize your tax liability. Here's some of the policies we were talking about earlier. There's something you're going to hear about public charge. If you're applying for humanitarian-based status, whether under U visas or T visas or under VAWA, you're not going to be subjected, or asylum, you're not going to be subjected to the public charge. You're exempt. The public charge is more like for a family-based petition and or employment-based petitions. Now that 5-year ban we talked about before, here is the PRWORA. This is the actual act that prevented folks from being eligible from getting Medicaid, as well as for preventing them from the TANF program indirectly, which was like an entry point into Medicaid. And like I was saying before, that supplemental security income, even if you hit, so essentially there's 7 categories where non-citizens can qualify for SSI, okay? And those categories are very limited, and pretty much no one after 1996 can qualify unless you have those 40 unless you are deemed a qualified alien. And there is an exemption for survivors of domestic violence. Now, you still have to meet another list of 7 criteria in order to still be eligible, even if you are a survivor of domestic violence. And one of those is that you would work those 40 hours, you paid 40 hours into the 40 quarters into the supplemental security income system. And because of that 5-year ban, even once you've paid your dues and you've done your 40 quarters and you're eligible, they then say, great, now you have to wait 5 years. So you can imagine what kind of detriment that puts on folks. And as far as the type of resources that are available to you without any status, here's a list of them. I'm not going to read them to save some time here. Here's that list in Spanish. And then my last thing would be, we try to do as much as we can. A lot of the benefit that we can help with is education. Education is such a huge piece. Just trying to figure out what's going on. What are your options? What's happened, and trying to figure out what can you do. So what we have are 3 separate hotlines here. There's the Newark hotline for folks above Monmouth County, the Red Bank hotline for anyone under that line. And then if you have someone who's in detention, they can call the detention hotline. We have a dedicated set of attorneys that do universal representation within the detention facilities, and that is their hotline number. So feel free to call. We do offer free consultations over the phone. And if we need to, if it gets complicated and we need to sit in person and review all the documents together, we can. Not a big deal. And a lot of it's really, you wouldn't believe how many people call and they're actually already U.S. citizens. You wouldn't believe how many people call and they're actually lawful permanent residents, and they had no idea. So, take the time to call. It's free, and I'm happy to talk anything through with you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all that information. We all do. Thank you so much all for joining us today and all of the information that you have provided to us.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
So joining us for our 3rd panel, Resources, is Janelle Tavares, a supervising social worker at the American Friends Service Committee, where she has provided case management services to immigrants for over 8 years. In addition, she has provided numerous presentations to the community members and service providers to encourage immigration-based knowledge on social services sector and amongst the community. Isa Porras is a director of the Family Justice Center located at the Family Court. The FJC is a joint project with the YWCA of Union County, Union County's Department of Human Services, and the Union County Prosecutor's Office. The FJC is a co-location to serve victims who receive multiple services in one office. Charles Dominguez is currently the Assistant Administrator of Community Engagement of Union County Social Services and has been with the agency since 2007. He has worked almost exclusively administering assistant programs such as NJ SNAP, NJ Family Care, TANF, and more. Jennifer Rodriguez is a program coordinator at Proceeds. Unfortunately, she is not able to be with us today, but we will start the panel with her recording.
Hey, Melanie, we cannot hear it.
Bear with us with just 1 second. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Proceed Inc. is a multicultural nonprofit agency that provides several social, health, and energy conservation services to individuals and families throughout Union County. Proceed services are organized under 6 general categories. One of these categories is the family resources, where we provide counseling and education for our children and families of Union County. We also offer recreational events from our Family Success Center and offer parenting groups as well as domestic violence support groups where our participants can receive education, resources, and emotional support. Another category is the HIV/AIDS services, where we provide counseling, testing, prevention, case management, health education, and support groups. Our recently opened drop-in center offers individuals and families dealing with substance use and housing instability a safe, non-judgmental space equipped with food, snacks, hygiene kits, fentanyl testing strips, and naloxone kits. The next category is the homelessness prevention and employment assistance, where we provide financial emergency assistance for rent, utilities, and food for people in danger of becoming homeless. We also offer employment search, preparation, and placement when available. Another category is the utility assistance and home improvement, where we provide heating payment assistance and weatherization energy conservation measures to income-eligible residents of Union County. Proceed also assists Union County senior citizens with minor home repairs. The next category is the substance use treatment. Our treatment programs provide counseling in individual or group settings, as well as case management. We also offer peer support for those individuals that might be interested. Our last category is the Proceeds National Center for Training, Support, and Technical Assistance. They provide capacity building, training, and technical assistance that supports the workforce of community-based health and human service organizations. For further information, you may contact us at 908-469-3200, or you may walk in to 1126 Dickinson Street, Elizabeth, New Jersey. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I know Jennifer is not able to be here today because Proceed's actually having an outreach fair. So if anybody is in downtown Elizabeth and wants to go over to Proceed's offices, they've taken over the street there. I'm totally blanking on the name off the top of my head, but it's from 4 to 7 today. And I know she very much wanted to be here, but she had to get involved there. So I don't know if any of you guys want to go first for sharing your agency's resources. Otherwise, I can go.
I can start if you like.
Great.
So I'm Charlie Dominguez from Union County Social Services. I'm sure many of you guys are aware of the programs that we offer. I'll run them down really quick. And we do offer a lot, and I can't say it all, but mainly NJ SNAP, New Jersey Family Care, ACA Medical. We offer a TANF cash, a general assistance cash, and those programs open the doors to other programs, which my colleague, Mr. DiNardo, will speak of shortly. I do have a PowerPoint, however, it's very long and I don't want to take up the whole time, so I can share it to anybody who wants it. It mainly speaks about the main programs that I spoke of and how to apply. Some of the new things that we have at our agency are we have different ways to apply now. We have an online portal now where people can apply online, do the whole application online without having to come into the agency. It's the same thing as actually coming in. It reserves the day the same. You know, it's a very streamlined process. If we need anything from you or from the clients, we will be we can reach out to them and call them up and ask them, listen, I need this or I need that. But it's it's just a way to give access to more people to our benefits. So again, I'll make that PowerPoint available to anybody who wants it. I'll leave my email in there. Anybody has a question about social services or anything that we offer, you know, by all means, you can reach out. Thank you.
Hello, I just want to make sure everyone can hear me. Okay, because sometimes my computer's a little weird, and I apologize for the noise if we're a little busy later in the day. So I'm Scott DiNardo. I'm currently the Sanction Unit Supervisor at Union County Social Services. I work in the department that handles housing, work activities, sanctions, transportation, and time limits. So before I go into kind of like what you have to do for our department, I'm going to just go through the process of what happens when someone comes in for us. When someone comes in and they request housing and they're a victim of domestic violence, what we do is we ask them currently how they're feeling, if they are in imminent danger and their feel for their safety currently. If they are, we give them the hotline number, which is 908-355-4357. We have them call. They'll deal with the person on the hotline directly. We are not involved. We'll give them space. They can make the phone call here and take as long as they need. If they go that route, our goal is hopefully through speaking to the hotline, they can get placed somewhere in a secure shelter or area where they can feel safe. If on the other side, if they say they are a victim of domestic violence, but they're not fearful for themselves, what we do is we complete a referral anyway. It's called a family violence risk assessment referral. So it's confidential. We don't ask any in-depth questions. We basically just ask for their information, and we ask if they need any transportation, any childcare, anything like that in order to complete the referral. So what we do is we'll ask if they are requesting any waivers from any programs for us. So the most common waivers that people ask for my department are work requirement waivers, EA time limit waivers, and 60-month time limit waivers. So the work requirement waiver would mean is a little background is anyone that gets any type of cash assistance at social services has to comply with a work activity unless they're deferred medically or otherwise. So if you were requesting a referral from that and it's granted, you wouldn't have to complete the work requirements. You would be deferred from it due to the waivers. For EA time limits, once you receive 12 months, that's the lifetime limit. You would have to apply for an extension. If you request a waiver from that, we go that route. That doesn't mean you don't have to do the extension application and the whole process. You still have to go through the process, but you're applying for the extension based on the waiver instead of another guideline that you may have had to apply under. And the same thing for the 60-month time limit waiver. Everybody that gets cash assistance is only eligible for 60 months for life. If you request a waiver from that, if you're over that number, you're requesting a waiver, you go that route. You still have to have the meeting with that unit to talk about that and see your options, but you can go for a waiver for that. Now, what we do is after we complete this referral, we fax it over to FEO. They will contact the client directly. They'll complete their portion of the referral, and then they send it back to us. So what they do, FEO, is they'll say what risk, after doing their risk assessment with the client, what type of risk the client's at, whether they're high risk, moderate risk, or low or no risk. And that they'll also put what waivers they think they should receive the client, and also if they think that they should get any services or activities, whether that's domestic violence counseling, behavioral health, substance abuse services counseling, housing, or whether they can just go into a normal work activity. And they'll send that to us back along with a description of how it went and everything that we can do to help the client. So that's our main tool, because we're not the professionals when it comes to domestic violence. So we rely on the professionals for that. And then we just go based on their recommendations. That's what we do. So what we do for our thing is housing. So anybody that needs any type of housing that's homelessness, they can come in, they can apply. We complete an application. And then we just need verification of homelessness if someone does that. So we basically just need to know for the past year what has happened in your life that has gotten you to the point now. So once the person provides verification of that, then we can begin placement. And the same thing, if they need transportation to that place, we provide that. If they need childcare to go anywhere, or to do any work activities or anything, we provide that as well. Anything along those lines, we will be willing to provide after we go through our normal guidelines. So even if someone has all the waivers, we still have to go through our guidelines, take applications, get verifications, do interviews, do all of that stuff. Just because you have a waiver doesn't mean it's just automatic. We still have to do the normal stuff. There has to be, unfortunately, a paper trail with everything that we do. But those are the main things that my department provides. So, and that's about all I have, unless anyone has any questions.
They see in the questions that someone asked about contact information. I don't know for you or for the best way to reach someone at social services to start the process.
Yes, I have my email is, I can put it in the chat if someone wants it, or I can just say it. It's Scott, SCOTT .DiNardo, DINARDO @UCNJ.org. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to email me. If it's something I can't answer that my specific unit that I supervise doesn't do, I could always refer you to the correct person and unit that can help you. But I'll try my best to answer any questions that anyone may email me or have.
I'd like to jump in really quick. A lot of these programs that he's speaking of start with, you know, an application, like an initial application for TANF, for general assistance. You know, there are certain exceptions for people who can speak with Mr. DiNardo's department, such as an SSI recipient. But a lot of that starts with initial contact with what's called the IM department, who takes the applications for cash or SNAP benefits. Our doors are open on Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. So if anybody has a need, they can come in at any time. They don't need an appointment. If there's a like some kind of emergency or homeless emergency, come into our office as soon as possible, and we'll get the ball rolling for you.
Yes, just to kind of piggyback on Mr. Dominguez, he's absolutely right. That's our number one rule that we have to go by. Anyone that comes to my department for housing, for anything, they have to be an active TANF, GA, or SSI recipient. So TANF is temporary assistance for needy families. For families, that's cash assistance. GA is for singles, and SSI is supplemental support income. So they have to get one of those three types of incomes in order for my department to even be able to evaluate someone to help them. If they don't, unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to help someone. We can refer them to other places that may be able to help them. And if they want, we could always take an application and give them a quick denial. So they'll see, okay, they came to social services, they're not an active recipient there, but at least they tried. Some places ask for denial just to see, to make sure, oh, they came to us first, but we would be willing to do that if someone requests it. Okay. Should I guess, answer? We have some questions in there about what happens if someone comes to Union County from another county because of domestic violence. Do you help them the same way you would if they didn't leave their original county? So it depends on kind of the circumstance. If they're going through family violence in the other county and that they're sent them to a place here, we don't know where they send them. That's the thing. If someone is working with family violence and is placed, we are never aware of the location of that. So you would usually stay with the county that you originated in. But that's a tough question to answer without specific knowledge of what is going on. That's a little too vague. If someone's here and let's say they came from Hudson or something like that, and the reason is because of domestic violence, there's always ways we could try to do things. We would have to go through family violence to see, okay, this person's coming through them, they think they should stay here. Then, I mean, worst case, we could always have the case transferred. I mean, that's always an option, but we would have to work with each counties And it depends if you're getting active benefits from the other county or not. If you're not, then it's a lot easier than if you are. If you are getting it, then it has to be transferred. If not, then we could work around certain things. Okay, the next question is, why is it taking so long to get assistance when they try to prosecute, when all the money comes in with the way? I don't know what that question is.
And I mean, if this is a standard question that I get all the time as, you know, being in community engagement. You know, we are extremely behind on social services. You know, we've had a 200% increase in demand for our services. Since we kind of reopened for COVID, because we never really closed, but we were severely short-staffed. We are operating at a severe a shortage of staff right now. That combined with the uptick in applications is causing us to fall behind a lot. So with that being said, you know, we understand there are special cases that need to get processed sooner than later. You know, those usually get flagged, you know, either by our phone room or the email, you know, comes in, it finds its way to my desk, and I make sure that it gets to the people that need to. So I'll also put in my email address. If anybody has any questions about that, I can check on the status whenever I get a chance and let you know what's going on with the case. You know, unfortunately, that's become like the largest part of my day.
Thank you so much, Charles, for letting us know. I would like to pass it over now to Ms. Tavares.
Hi, thank you. I have a short, like 3-clip presentation I'll share with you guys just to go over our services. Okay. You guys able to see my screen, right?
Yes, perfect.
Oh, all right, great. So as my colleague presented earlier, I'm from the American Friends Service Committee. We're an immigrant rights program. We originally started as one office in Newark. We have 2 locations in Newark, New Jersey now, and also an office in Red Bank. We provide legal representation in immigration proceedings, case management services. We now have a team of 5 social workers and an advocacy and organizing team. So a little bit about what our social workers do. We provide case management to our services on a with a client-centered approach. We work with a variety of different folks from all over the world at times. We work with folks who are recently released from ICE detention facilities, some folks who live in the community. And so what we do is kind of work from a perspective of empowerment, build a rapport with client, develop a service plan for them to attain the goals of, you know, overall well-being, in a sense, to improve overall well-being. So a part of that, because what becomes confusing is the immigration piece, in a sense, because we work with clients on a wide range of immigration statuses. So not everybody qualifies for every general, maybe public benefit like NJ SNAP or NJ Family Care or TANF for general assistance. So sometimes we also have to resort to or look for and allocate different community resources for them just to address basic needs, providing advocacy, navigating social service systems and other benefit programs can be really confusing for folks who are not acclimated to yet, or maybe there's language barriers or other barriers in place. So we provide that support and advocacy for folks to help them through those processes. So helping them apply for different applications, helping them gather the necessary documentation needed for those applications is the premise of like what we really do to try to get them access to services. And so like I always just share like some general, so it's hard to actually make like a resource list for folks because like I said, there's a wide range of immigration statuses and everybody's just not going to qualify for everything. So in this premise, in a sense, like some of these resources that are now available regardless of immigration status, one of them more recently being NJ Family Care for Children, available to children regardless of immigration status. For adults who have qualified, some survivors who have VAWA or asylees or U visa recipients, they would also qualify. We also refer and utilize federally qualified health centers. They're located in each county in New Jersey for some basic medical needs. We do refer out to those a lot and encourage folks. Food pantries, soup kitchens, the WIC program for new moms, domestic violence shelters and programs, obviously, and some Section 218 HUD housing programs that are available to our recipients and children with qualified immigration statuses or have U.S. citizenship can be used as placed as primary applicants for these programs. So we definitely do encourage that. You know, just some of the basic premises of like in working with survivors, questions that we get are like, what benefits are available to those with the prima facie? So a lot of survivors aren't even aware that they have access to any services with this document. And, you know, essentially they're qualified for, you know, public benefits, NJ SNAP, TANF general assistance, NJ family care, HUD housing programs. So we do help a lot of our survivors guide and apply for those programs. Another question to get is, are VAWA, UVISA, or asylum recipients, are they subject to public charge? My colleague Zaman also touched on this previously. No, that's the short answer. They are humanitarian-based statuses, and they're not ever subject to public charge. So a lot of folks, through the change of presidential administrations and the changes in public charge policy going like back and forth, a lot of folks were unsure or fearful to enroll in public benefit programs with the fear that it would affect them down the line immigration-wise. But that's not the case for a lot of our survivors in these statuses. That is a general sense of my slides. So I mean, I've been doing this work for a little over 8 years now. I've become very familiarized with how immigration statuses affect access to benefits, what statuses qualify for what benefits. So essentially, if like there's ever any questions or any specific cases you want clarification on, I mean, please feel free to reach out to me. I can actually, I'll share my email in the chat too. So that you guys are able to contact me. I think it's only, okay. So let me know if you guys could see that.
We are not able to see it, but if you'd like, you can say it out loud and then I'll make sure. Oh, perfect. We do see it on the chat.
Yeah, it's also, yeah. So jtavares@afsc.org. That'll be my email. You can reach out to me. Like I said, any case specific questions, or you guys can call into our general office. I get calls all the time about asking specifics, so I have no problem answering.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
I'm just going to jump right into my presentation in PowerPoint because I know we're getting low on time with all our technical issues when we first started, but I'm going to go ahead and just start right now. A lot of the YWCA services have already been touched on throughout the past 3 hours, but I do want to highlight a couple of them. I do want to say, Ms. Farah, that we actually just yesterday had an asylum seeker here in our office who was asking us about public benefits. So it was great to be reassured that we gave her the accurate information. So thank you for that. So the YWCA Union County is the state designated lead domestic violence agency for Union County, and we offer a full spectrum of free services for victims of domestic violence, supporting them as they move from victim to survivor. And while I'm going to touch on a couple of these, I'm going to touch on all of our services, I'm just going to highlight those that are particularly relevant to today's discussion. Partly in the interest of time and partly because I want to stay on point for what we are talking about today, which is helping survivors navigate the challenging economy that we are in. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go into the Family Justice Center, which is where I work. I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, but just very quickly, the Union County Family Justice Center is the joint initiative between the Union County, the prosecutor's office, as well as the YWCA. And we are a walk-in center located in the backside of the family courthouse. And we're one of the 3 gateways that most victims use to access YWCA services. People will either walk into our Family Justice Center in order to offer services, or they might contact the police departments through which the crisis response team, which is made up of a team of victim advocates, will then follow up with victims who are in crisis and at the police station in order to provide them with services right then and there, providing them with support and referrals for important safety planning purposes in order to make sure they know what their next steps are going to be in their situations. And lastly, as was talked about a couple of times, the YWCA does run the 24/7 hotline here in Union County. The number has been shared already, but I will share it again here, 908-355-HELP. We also offer a community education and outreach program where we do go around to different community agencies and schools in order to educate people about domestic violence. Our PALS is a art therapy program for children between the ages of 3 and 17 to help them deal with the trauma that they have been through. We also have domestic violence liaisons located at Trinitas's emergency room, as well as DCP&P's offices, in order to have domestic violence expert advocates there on site to assist folks who are interacting with those different agencies. We offer individual and group counseling, both in English and Spanish. All of our services are provided in English and Spanish, and I should add that our hotline has access to language lines. We're able to assist victims in all languages when they do call us. And the 3 programs I want to highlight the most are our case management, STEP, and residential services, because I think those really do resonate with what we're talking about here. I know I saw a comment in the question and answers about applying for VCCO, and our case managers, as well as my team here at the Family Justice Center, do assist people in applying for VCCO. VCCO is we could talk an hour and a half about that, but for those who aren't familiar with it, I urge you, in the interest of time, to Google it. It's through the New Jersey Attorney General's office, and it is financial support available to folks who have been victims of crimes. There's an application process, and we do assist them with that, and that is actually a great source of an untapped economic resource for a lot of victims. Through case management, similar to at American Friends, we assess the needs and goals of our clients and provide them with support. We help the clients set their goals, self-sufficiency and independency from their abusers, and help them access community resources for wide-ranging services such as housing, immigration, social services, food stamps, legal assistance, childcare, and other needs. And we also help them navigate through all of the various complicated systems that are out there that they do encounter. I know Francelli spoke quite a bit about our STEP program. I did want to highlight a couple of things that I know she didn't have a chance to talk about. But the STEP program really does offer a variety of supports to folks who are looking to achieve economic independence, many of whom have been the victims of financial abuse. We have a financial literacy curriculum where we help with credit repair, budgeting, savings, banking, and taxes. Our career development, where we offer resume and cover letter help. We run mock interviews for victims, many of whom might be looking for a job for the first time or have been out of the workforce for quite a long time. We help them research and connect them to different job opportunities. We offer job skills development, including, as Francelli was talking about earlier, our partnership with Union College, with ESL classes, Microsoft Office training, computer labs, helping to connect to GED programs, as well as exploring higher education opportunities, and then entrepreneurship opportunities as well. I know she really went into that quite a bit, so I'm just going to leave that there. So I do want to quickly touch on, I'd see we're at 4 o'clock, our residential services. We did talk about emergency shelter. Residents are provided with extensive case management to support goal setting and getting the most well-rounded resources possible, as well as offering them supportive counseling. Folks can stay for up to 30 days, and extensions of 90 days are possible on a case-by-case basis. And we do offer them with food, clothing, and transportation assistance on some levels. The last thing I really wanted to make sure I had a chance to get in here is our new Housing Navigator program. We just recently received funding from the state to hire someone in this position. And what's going to be really critical and kind of ties in a lot of what we talked about much earlier is the Housing Navigator's role will be to help develop relationships in the community and with landlords to develop more housing opportunities for survivors. So we're really excited about that opportunity and having someone designated in that role. And the Housing Navigator will also work with survivors to develop housing stability plans, including around financial planning and budgeting. We don't want to have survivors exit our shelter program, enter into a home with then no ability to pay it past the first month. So we really want to make sure that we're doing longer term financial planning and making sure that our survivors are connected with affordable housing opportunities. So that is 401. So I apologize for going over, but I do know that we just want to quick have Catherine Lynch, who's our Assistant Executive Director from the YWCA, come on for closing remarks. Everybody can just stay on for a couple more minutes.
Hi, everybody. I wanted to thank you all for attending this virtual event on navigating a challenging economy as a survivor of domestic violence. I know that these are tough times, and I want to commend you for your strength and resilience. We've heard from some amazing speakers today who who have shared their insights on the impact of the current housing crisis, untapped economic opportunities, and resources for domestic violence survivors. I would like to remind everyone to enter their names and email addresses into the question and answers so that we can follow up with additional information on resources. I hope that this information has been helpful. Please know that you are not alone and that there are people who care about you and want to help. I wish you all the best in your journey. Good night.